Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies. I did it again. I can't believe I did that. Movies again. I don't mean to do that. Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies. No, that's too loud. Movies. 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 This is Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies. This is the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. And it's just Marco here once again. I am here to review a movie that surprisingly frustrated the living hell out of me because of things that don't even have to do with the movie. And I'll explain. So I am reviewing my next Bette Davis movie. This represents the 70s, and it is Burnt Offerings. Now, first off, the title is a spoiler. I don't know why that they would call this movie Burnt Offerings, because it literally gives away the whole movie. I don't know why they did that. That was weird. And, there's so much to talk about. So let's just have a little history lesson, okay? It's not even important history. What do you call that kind of history? Well, I guess all history, I guess it's still important in a way because it's dealing with this movie. So as a kid, I rented tons of horror movies from the library, from the video stores. We would go to like 4 or 5 video stores to get one movie if I couldn't find it. And one of those movies, there's this one movie where there's like a family, they're at a white house. It's a very distinct looking white house. And there's this pool and there's like a play set in the backyard. There's like a white play set. It's like like a little jungle gym or something. Like it's a little play set. And there's grandparents and they're living with this family in this white house. And the kid is playing in the backyard. He hurts himself in front of the grandparents. And then like later on, both grandparents die. Burgess Meredith dies. I think he was in the movie, and both the grandparents died. Both of them have a heart attack, and then at the end of the movie, there's like this big chaos, and the house finally wants to kill them, I guess, and everything is just coming apart. The house is killing them, kinda. It's like trying to kill them. And it's discovered that the villain of the whole movie was like an evil, cursed music box. And it's at nighttime, and the dad like destroys the music box, or he does something with the music box, and the rest of the family escape. And they escape in their car. It's at nighttime, and you just see that all the wind, there was all this wind and terror and things flying everywhere. All of it stopped when they destroyed the music box. But then they leave, and then the last shot is just a zoom in of the music box. Now, I don't know what movie that is, because I thought it would be this movie. So, I guess I also rented Burnt Offerings, and I distinctly remembered a blue VHS cover with a face in the blue and then a house underneath it. I remember that cover. It was a very good cover. Very good poster. Very creepy. And I loved the movie as a kid. I loved Burnt Offerings. I guess I loved both of them. I loved the other one more. And so that's why I wanted to watch it. Because I wanted to watch whatever that movie was. That it was very scary as a kid. Very, very scary. And so flash forward to when I was 12 or 13. And I was at Netflix, and it was a rainy, stormy night, windy, and I saw Fright Night, and Fright Night's cover looks strikingly similar to Burnt Offerings. It is a blue cover with like a face, and then the house is underneath it. And although it is a lot more detailed, I thought, oh, it's that movie. I want to watch that movie now. I want to remember that movie, if it was any good or not. I really wanted to watch it again. And then I put it on, and I'm like, what the hell is this? This isn't the movie I remembered. This isn't whatever that movie was with the heart attacks and the music box. But I really loved the movie. Like, I loved Fright Night, and guess what? Fright Night is my favorite movie of all time. Nothing will ever beat it, hopefully. I mean, it is just the greatest thing ever. And it's just the best. Like, it is the greatest thing of all time. Nothing will ever beat that movie for me. It's too perfect. And flash forward to years later, and I searched around. I found a movie called Burnt Offerings, and I thought, oh, that's got to be the movie with the heart attacks, with the kid in the playset in the backyard, and the two grandparents are staying there. They're watching him play, and they're like having fun, and then he gets hurt, and it's really scary. And I watched this movie for Bette Davis week, and I guess it's still not the movie. Like, what the hell? I thought this was gonna be a closing chapter. I thought this was gonna be satisfying, that I finally found the mystery movie, but I haven't. This is terrible. It's absolutely terrible that this is still not resolved. So now let's get into Burnt Offerings, because I don't really want to be mean and like take away from this movie, because I do want to talk about this movie, because I chose to review it, but it's still not the one that I wanted. It's still not what I remembered. Anyways, this movie, right off the bat, I felt like this was like The Shining Light, but actually this is a little bit better than The Shining's original story, with the way that all the twists and things, and the characters are a lot better. And I really liked this movie. It was a very good horror movie. I loved it. I thought that it was actually one of the best horror movies I've seen in a while. Like, it was so good, and it was so refreshing to see after I've watched all these garbage modern horror movies. Finally, you see this great horror movie. The first thing is that, number one, it did remind me of The Shining. That was funny, because I actually learned that I guess he was inspired by that novel a little bit. He really liked the novel, and then he wrote The Shining, so I thought that was kind of cool, because you can watch both things. They're different. They're different enough to where you can't really say, that's a ripoff, and I like that, because nowadays The Shining would have been a ripoff of Burnt Offerings. And so I thought it was cool that you can tell these two things apart. They're two separate things. You can enjoy both and say, like, yeah, I'd like to watch The Shining today, or yeah, I'd like to watch Burnt Offerings today. But then you have the fact that this takes place during the summer, which I love that idea. I thought that was a great choice, instead of having it be like this dark and spooky winter time period, and it's cold. It's just like a pleasant, nice 1970s summertime. Everything's happy and gay, and you have this family. They're going to rent this house for the summer. The only condition is that they have to take care of Mrs. Allardyce, this old woman who is just confined to her room upstairs in the attic, and that is the condition. And they take it, and Burgess Meredith is in the movie when they're introducing the house, but then he's not in the rest of the movie, so I guess it's like, I don't know, I was so pissed off at the end of this movie for the fact that, I thought this was going to be that movie, and the fact that that mystery is still going to go on now. It kind of distracted me because I expected that stuff to happen. Like, I expected to see Burgess Meredith. He's in his room is locked, he has a heart attack. Like, I remember that happening. Like, I don't know if it's the Mandela effect or what. Like, it's really weird. And so this family moves in, and basically the whole movie is just insanity of, like, they're going crazy. People are being forced to do things by the house somehow, supernaturally. Like, the father at one point, he tries to drown his son, which is I gotta say, for a PG movie, this is very dark, and it's very creepy. And I like that. I like that this pushes the boundaries. Because I watched this as a kid, and I don't think that nowadays kids would be allowed to watch this. I think it would have been rated R. And so I really like the fact that I was allowed to watch this back then. I could have watched R-rated movies too, but I just like the fact that they made movies like this were a lot more daring. They were a lot more boundary pushing. They didn't just play it safe. They didn't just, do like the bare minimum. There were a lot of very creepy and scary things in this movie, surprisingly. The movie got scarier and scarier as it went on. I was not comfortable watching this movie. I was very on edge towards the end of the movie. And I felt worried for the characters. And that's something rare too, because nowadays, characters in movies, they're just complete garbage, and you don't care what happens to them. Like the characters in the Fear Street trilogy. Ugh. Like, who cares if any of them die? Who cares about them? But these characters, I care about. There are some funny little things, though. Like, at one point, the son, he finds some ding-a-lings, and he's like, oh wait, not ding-a-lings, ding-dongs. And he's like, oh wow, ding-dongs! A whole case of them! I love ding-dongs! It was hilarious. Little moments like that. There's a moment where, like, Oliver Reed, and we will talk about the Oliver Reed, because he is a very interesting character in this movie. At one point, he's sitting around shirtless, just drinking a beer on the front lawn. He's just sitting around drinking a beer, and he's not even an alcoholic or anything. He's just having a fun summer day of drinking some beer. And he drinks the beer, and then the beer starts spilling all over him, and because he gets scared, and it's pretty funny. And Oliver Reed in this movie, the movie's already kind of funny because, even more so than Jack Nicholson, I would not want to be in a house alone with Oliver Reed. He is like this beefy, creepy looking, like, he looks like the creepiest, like, he looks like a Lego person, he looks like this bulky Lego person that just, it looks like he could strangle you without even trying. He's a very creepy looking guy. I don't think that he looks like a handsome movie star at all, like a Jimmy Stewart. He looks like a creep. And I guess he was mean in real life to Bette Davis, and she didn't like him. But I thought that's number one, is that this guy, he's creepier than Jack Nicholson. He's a lot scarier. Like, Jack Nicholson, he's skinnier, he's lankier. At one point, she knocks him down the stairs like a fucking, just a rag doll falling down the stairs. And the wife never would have been able to do that to Oliver Reed in this movie. I mean, he's a hulking, creepy guy. And that's number one. So you have him. And to be honest, too, he kind of reminds me a bit of Stephen King in his younger years. Like, if Oliver Reed had been in The Shining, I think he could have done a good job, because he reminds me of Stephen King. They're both kind of bulky guys. They both have kind of like this squarish shape to them, their faces especially. And so I think that he would have been actually a much better choice to play Jack Torrance if you were going for a more faithful version, which I don't really think a faithful version would have been good, so I don't really care. Because then they made the TV remake, which was complete trash, but it was entertaining trash. And then you have the wife, Karen Black, and I like her quite a bit. You know, she's a simple actress. I think that she's not great, you know, like she's not amazing. She's just kind of like pretty good. She's like a C+ actress. But she's a lot better than the ones they have nowadays, so I guess that's a step up. And so I liked her quite a bit. She was a stronger character, but I gotta say, though, it's funny because after all these movies with quote-unquote strong women, it's funny because I think that in this one, the women's strength is kind of waning. And so it seems like in the 70s, the female characters in movies, they started to actually get less good. And so I'm starting to see an entirely different picture of Hollywood and with women in movies, to where I think that actually women in movies had a much better showing in the 40s, the 50s, the 30s. You know, now in this movie, it just seems like they're playing second fiddle. If you look at these movies, you know, one from each decade. So I gotta say, that's pretty hilarious, because it completely goes against the narrative where, you know, people said there was no strong women in anything until 2010. You know, with all those shitty movies, those shitty agenda movies. And then you have The Son. And The Son is pretty bland. I mean, he's pretty boring and goofy. And so I gotta say that one of the improvements that The Shining made on the story is that he made the son a more interesting character. And so that's one of the distinctions, because in this movie, like, literally the only thing I can remember is, number one, the ding-dongs, and then number two, the swimming scenes. Other than that, the son really isn't, he doesn't really have a character that you can grasp, that you can, oh God, that sounded terrible. I did not mean that. I did not mean that at all. Okay? Do not take those words out of context. The character, the character could not be fully, God, I don't know what to say. It's like, you say anything, it could be misconstrued. The boy did not have a character that you could comprehend, that you could fully comprehend, because all he was really the bright young boy character. Oh, yeah, Dad, I know how to do things. Hey, Dad, let's go swimming, Daddy Pooh. Oh, hi, Dad. You know, that's all he was. He really didn't have much of a character. And then Bette Davis, I would have liked to have grasped her, because I thought that she was actually my favorite character of the movie. I thought that she was the best part. She played the Aunt Elizabeth, I think. And I really loved her in this movie. I thought she looked really good. Surprisingly, you know, she didn't look bad at all. Like, she looked very natural, very good. It was kind of weird, because I thought that, like, she looked bad after all these years of smoking, but she looked really, really good in this movie. And yeah, she was my favorite part, so I was sad when she died. I mean, it was very dark. It was a very intense sequence where you see this hallucination, I guess, of this other character. Now, let's talk about the best male character of the movie, because she's the best main character, but he's the second best character, and he's even better than Oliver Reed. Oliver Reed has some sort of a hallucination flashback about going to his mom's funeral, and they actually cast a kid who looks a lot like Oliver Reed, which I thought was cool. And at the funeral, he sees this really creepy chauffeur, and he's got these sunglasses on, and he's laughing at this funeral, and he's just like laughing up a storm. And I thought that might have been the best part of the entire fucking movie. And then I found out in trivia that the director, Dan Curtis, and we'll talk about him, that was his real life memory. That actually happened. And so he used that in the movie. And I thought, wow, it's too bad that we didn't have more of that, because that really didn't make any sense at all. But it was still very, very good. It was a very, very good, creepy, awesome sequence. It was perfect. It was so cool the way that guy would pop up, and he'd just do a little laugh and smile, and like, it was really terrifying, actually. And so I kind of wish that each character had their own, like, haunted flashback or something, and maybe each character would have their own encounter with the chauffeur, or maybe each character had their own, like, monster demon who was like the chauffeur. I thought that would have improved the movie, because as it stands, that is one of the things that sticks out, because the whole movie makes sense. The whole movie is like a consistent plot, but that's the only thing that sticks out as not making sense to me, because we don't really get any explanation for the chauffeur. I guess he just symbolizes death coming for them, that's it, but we don't really get any explanation. And I thought that was a weak point, that character was just kind of, just a random creepy character. He could have been the main villain of the movie. I mean, he was that good. The main villain of the movie, this is another great thing about this movie, is that the main villain of the movie we don't even see until the very end of the movie. I mean, the whole movie we're just kind of questioning, okay, the house is supernatural, but we know that Mrs. Allardyce, we know that something is up with her. And we get to find out what that is at the very end. But the rest of the movie, it's a very normal movie, nothing, they don't really show any main villain at all. Bad things just happen. And I really liked this movie. Like, it was really good. Part of the reason why it was really, really good might be one of my favorite horror movies I've ever seen, too. Which, that's saying something, because I'm a huge horror fan. One of the reasons is because Dan Curtis made this movie, and he is the one who did Dark Shadows. And he gets bad-mouthed a lot nowadays. Like, a lot of people, they hate Dan Curtis. Like, if you guys have ever seen, like, the things people have said about him, like, he ruined Dark Shadows! He ruined Barnabas Collins! He ruined his Dark Shadow! Dan Curtis is a bad man! Dan is bad. Dan bad. Wah, wah, wah. If you've ever seen any of the complaining about him, a lot of the people claim that he doesn't have any talent, and that he's just kind of like an accidental success. Like, they said that, the reason why Dark Shadows was good was Barnabas, not Dan Curtis. Well, the funny thing is that you see this movie, and the reason why this story is really, really good is because it has the Dan Curtis touch on it. Dan Curtis did an incredible job with this movie. He didn't even like the novel. Like, that's how badass this guy is. He took the novel and he said, I don't even like this fucking novel, this Burnt Offerings, boring novel. And he took that and he made one of the greatest horror movies of all time. And he made it feel a lot like Dark Shadows. You have this strong ensemble cast. You have dream flashbacks to family-related horror stuff. You have the music is a lot like Dark Shadows. Very, very creepy villains, very evil villains in this movie. Very scary moments, too. You know, he's very good at making good, scary moments. And so I gotta say that, like, all these people who badmouth Dan Curtis, you know, they're full of shit. You know, they're completely full of shit. And it's really become a common thing nowadays to sort of destroy the... How do I say this? Like, back then, people treated directors like they were geniuses, like they were next level creative people. They were talented individuals. Nowadays, it kind of seems like the role of director has been diminished. You know, the role of director, the role of writers, they have been severely undervalued by people, because nowadays all people focus on are actors. And in fact, the actors are complete trash. In fact, actors have become so important in Hollywood that people don't even really care about directors anymore. You know, they don't go to any movies for any director except if it's for like Tarantino or Scorsese. And it's really because people have undervalued and sort of taken all of the importance out of the director role, like by like moving over the fanboyism and all the praise for all the actors, even though the actors are really just cattle. You know, they're really just robots for you to program and put in place where they need to be put in place. You know, they're really not that special. You know, the directors are the people who make things happen. They're the ones who make the show go. And that's why movies suck nowadays, because all these directors suck. They fucking suck. They got no balls. They have no spines. They have the writers. They're terrible. They have all these agendas. You know, they're afraid they can't put this and that in their movies because their precious little actors won't like it. And, you know, so that's why movies suck nowadays. It's because the role of director has really been, it's been tarnished. You know, that's why they have disrespected Dan Curtis to the point of where they say he's not even talented, even though he's a extremely famous, talented horror director. You know, they did the same thing with Joss Whedon. You know, now they're pretending like, oh, Joss Whedon never had any talent, even though he made Buffy the Vampire Slayer one of the greatest television shows of all time. Oh, he doesn't have any talent because that crybaby diva actor on Twitter said so. You know, that little bitch crybaby diva on Twitter who complains about him on a daily basis because he said that director is bad. That means he's bad and never had any talent. You know, that's what people have basically, that's what it's come down to. You know, they've done that with J.K. Rowling because she has stated her own opinions on her own social media. She's bad. She never had any talent. Harry Potter was never good because of J.K. Rowling, the fucking creator of Harry Potter. You know, what else? Victor Salva, you know, because he did some very evil things and he took accountability and went to prison for it years and years ago before Jeepers Creepers even came out. Now people are like, oh, I won't see Jeepers Creepers unless it's made by someone who isn't him. And he never really had any talent, and Jeepers Creepers sucked, and you know, all this stuff. It's like people have really turned into these, like, I don't know, like it's really because of the actors. You know, this is all because of the actors. And I really think, again, I'm going to echo that studios should not have given up control of actors, because this is what you get. You know, you're not going to get Burnt Offerings in 2022. It has an attempted rape scene. Can't do that anymore because that's bad. And of course it's bad. but like, we can't show that, we can't do that, we can't do that. So it's really too bad. This movie was really, really good, and I loved it. I thought it was a little slow in the middle, but I didn't mind the slowness because it was still good. And, I really, really liked this movie. Like, I really, really liked it. And also, I just wanted to bring up this last example of, a lot of nowadays with comedies, what do people ask actors? What do people ask? I'll give you a little... and this has to do with Burnt Offerings too, because this is very important to why the movie isn't perfect, but it is really good. Okay, well, the answer is people ask actors nowadays, did you improvise? Or was all of your dialogue in Ghostbusters improvised? Was all of your dialogue in The Big Lebowski improvised? And you know why people ask that? It's because they don't respect directors and writers anymore. They only respect actors. And so people assume nowadays, oh no, writers could never write any good dialogue. Only actors could. So we're going to ask the actors if they wrote all the dialogue themselves, because actors, they write, they can write this. I mean, they can, but to the point of where they wrote the whole movie, like the whole Big Lebowski, the whole Ghostbusters, it's just complete fucking bullshit. And yet you see people ask that question over and over again, and then the actors are like, what the fuck are you talking about, you little punk? Like, the writers wrote my dialogue, because the writers are fucking writers. And that is a big issue with this movie, though, is that the dialogue is not that good. And so in this case, I will say that the writer could have been better. I will say that, like, the writer, he could have, whoever wrote this movie, maybe it was Dan Curtis, I think that he needed some help with the dialogue, because part of the reason why this isn't really the best horror movie ever made is because a lot of the dialogue is trash. It's very light, boring, slow, kind of just old people dialogue. It really isn't good, intriguing, engaging dialogue. It really isn't good. I basically came up with the plot myself, but it really wasn't because of the dialogue. Like, the dialogue there wasn't any suspenseful scenes where people talk. There were attempts at suspenseful scenes, like there's the scene where Karen Black talks to the aunt, and she's asking her about if she locked the son's room and if she tampered with the son's room. And that scene could have been very suspenseful if the writer had put in good dialogue. The actors aren't going to write that dialogue. The writer writes the dialogue, okay? And the writer needed to write better dialogue, because the scene was not very suspenseful. It was not as good as it could have been. And so that kind of took some of the goodness out of the movie, because the movie was lacking good dialogue. And you really didn't get any good dialogue where they kind of hinted at what was really going on. You really didn't get anything good like that. You had to really come up with it all by yourself. So, and I was able to, kinda. And at the end, I will say the ending was fantastic. Like, the ending was really, really good. And I guess the director, Dan Curtis, who's apparently, he doesn't have any talent, which he does. He read the original novel, and he said that he didn't like the ending because it was very open-ended. And guess what? He fixed it. And that's what good writers do. That's what good filmmakers do. If they're adapting something, they see, oh, that's trash. That is complete trash. Ew, this book has some sort of a stupid open ending where you don't really know what happens. It's kind of like a bad version of David Lynch ending. And, he took that, he made it good. And he made it a fantastic ending. It is a really good ending where the family is going to leave. And we know that if you've seen Dan Curtis movies, the family always has trouble leaving their house. Things don't go well when you want to leave a house in a Dan Curtis movie. And in Night of Dark Shadows, it was the same type of ending where they're about to leave, and then the wife, Stacy, goes back in the house. The husband. And the husband goes back in the house, and then the wife, she goes looking for him, and then that's when shit gets real. And the same thing happens. You have, they're like fighting, like, I do not want, Oliver Reed, he's like, I do not want you going back in that house. I do not want you to be in danger. And then she's like, no, just go. I'll just go in there. I'll just 1 second. I'll just go. And he's like, I do not want you to do that. It's like this. It's like they're having a fight over who goes back in this evil haunted house. And I thought it was a fantastic scene because, like, you can tell they're scared. Like, you can tell they're adults, but they don't want to go back in this house. And I thought that was a great little conversation. That was good dialogue. And then the wife goes in to say goodbye to Mrs. Allardyce. You know, who the fuck is Mrs. Allardyce? We don't even get to see Mrs. Allardyce, at all. And I thought, there's got to be some sort of a big climactic scene where we finally get to see her, and she has like a creepy conversation, and the son is waiting in the car. And the son, he just, that's one of the flaws about this movie, is that the son, not only is his character trash, but he gets trash to where he doesn't really get to have any sort of, he doesn't do anything really in the finale of the plot except for just get thrown around and hurt and drowned, and, he gets in several car crashes. Like, the son doesn't get any sort of character things to do. And so I thought that was sad because it seemed like the son should have been more active in the plot at the end. It seemed like they kind of treated him like, oh, he's just the boy, he's just the son, he can't do anything, kind of like the women characters, and so it's funny, things are going backward, honestly, in my opinion. If we're looking historically in the 70s, things are going backward. And Oliver goes back in the house, and he goes in Mrs. Allardyce's room, or Miss Allardyce's room, and oh fuck, it is like a very creepy scene. It is just this amazing scene where it's revealed, I guess, that the ghost of the house or something, the house is like possessing his wife, and the house has been possessing his wife the whole movie. She has been the one who's been doing all these evil things, and so that's why she's like in her room a lot, and she takes care of her. It's because she is her. And she's been possessed by the house the whole movie, and she looks evil and old. And I was really expecting, though, I was a little disappointed because I kind of wanted them to have like a conversation. Like, this is, the villain of the movie essentially is the house. I kind of thought it would have been cool to hear the house talk to Oliver Reed. Like, I know that sounds funny, but I thought it would have been really cool to, like, hear the house. Like, just imagine the perspective of a house. Like, just imagine all the things that a house would have to say to Oliver Reed. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I wanted to hear what the house had to say inside of her body. And I thought it could have been a really cool, like, creepy final conversation where, I don't know, she's like, thank you for staying here, or some cool final dialogue scene, but she just stares at him, And she scares the shit out of him to the point of where he jumps out the window. And he's like, bye-bye, bitch. Like, he already wanted to abandon her earlier in the movie, which that was pretty hilarious. Like, he just straight up wants to abandon his wife. He's like, okay, you want to stay here in this house? You want to stay here the rest of the summer? Bye-bye. And so he just jumps out the window. He doesn't really even care about Karen Black, this mayonnaise sandwich woman. He doesn't really care about her at all. He just wants to get the fuck out. That sequence was the definition of GTFO. Like, just get the fuck out of here. And then, so he dies. And I gotta say, like, that death scene was awesome. Like, he just lands on the car, and his face is, like, inside the glass, and, like, there's blood everywhere, and the son screams. It's a very horrific scene. Like, I was surprised at how brutal it was, and then the son gets out, and finally the house starts falling apart, and the chimney falls on the son and kills him too. And the last thing we see are all the pictures of the different people that this house has killed, and they were basically all offerings. And that is why the movie's called Burnt Offerings, is because Burgess Meredith and the other old woman, they invite people to stay, and then those people are all offered to the house so that the house can be revived and it can stay young. So the house kills people to stay young, and it has to, and I thought, wow, that's a cool story. I love that story. It's a much better explanation than in The Shining, where it's like, oh, there's this hotel and it's haunted. And it's like, why? Why though? Like, why is the hotel evil? Well, in this movie, it's because the house has to eat people to live, to stay young, so it doesn't get old and decay. And so I thought that was actually a great fucking story. I really loved this movie. And I loved Bette Davis. She was the best part. So, in terms of food, that's where we get tricky, because this movie had some flaws. And so I can't really give it like a great food rating. I just can give it like a good food rating. So, I like chicken dinners. Chicken dinners are fantastic summer meals where you have chicken that's been cooked in the oven, you have corn, and you have mashed potatoes and gravy. This movie, though, the problem is that when I like to have chicken dinners, my favorite thing about them is the drumstick. The drumstick with that crispy skin and the salt that's been, like, the salt and pepper that's been, it's stuck into the crispy skin of the chicken, and you just tear it off with your teeth, and I can taste it right now. I can taste it. You taste that crispy chicken, that sexy chicken drumstick, that sexy leg, that nice round leg meat of a chicken. I can taste it, along with the mashed potatoes and gravy, the corn, and it is a perfect combination. Well, for this movie, it is not perfect. So instead of getting any drumstick, which is essential for me for a good chicken dinner, all you get is breast meat. And the breast meat, it's pretty good. I mean, it's solid. It's very good. If that's all I had to eat, I wouldn't be unhappy with that. But the best part is really the leg meat. And recently we had chicken dinner, and the gravy, it was a little too salty. Excuse me, sorry. It was too salty. And so we made new gravy. And so I gotta say, this movie has gravy that isn't salty enough. Gravy is kind of like dialogue in the sense that it kind of helps and enhances the whole movie, because you can put gravy all over everything on the plate. Hopefully not too much, because that would be, ugh. That'd be like eating a plate covered in snot. But the gravy, it's just not salty enough. It tastes kind of like flour water. Like flowers in the white flour. Not like a flower in the yard. You know, like a flower plant. No, flour. Baking flour. So it's a very tasteless gravy. And it's unfortunate because the whole meal is pretty good. And all that you need is to add some salt and add some more flavor to the gravy. And it would be perfect. So guys, thanks for watching this review. It's been a long review, probably the longest one in Bette Davis week. So please like this video, comment. What do you think about Burnt Offerings? I love it. I love the movie. I would watch it again, but I want to find that other movie so fucking badly. Like, it is a problem now. It is... no more Mr. Nice Guy. I am gonna handle this personally, as I've already been I've got to find this fucking movie. I've got to find it. It is like, what the hell? Like, why can't I find a movie? You can find movies all over the place, and I can't find this one movie. It's so irritating. And then please subscribe if you'd like to see more Bette Davis movie reviews. The last two Bette Davis movies will be White Mama, which I chose just for the hilarious title, and then her last movie, Wicked Stepmother. So goodbye, everybody. See you soon.